even last time was only 40 minutes. We'll do quicker than that. Overview of agriculture, and then into fire coating, making some health products out of copper, and moving on to tomorrow. Oh, tea. And this is the last from me. I then it's handed over to everyone else for the next day and a half. So agricultural applications is also really interesting. So we've learned that it's a universal energy, it's a universal material, so it can be applied to anything because it's like source energy. And everything down here is from source. So for health, for agriculture, for power, for decontamination, for feeding, for cleanup, anything. So this is the agriculture, and so the objectives with the GANs is not just to produce bumper crops, but it's actually to increase the resilience of the crops to pests and to drought and to any environmental challenges, and to increase the vitality and nutritional value of the crop. And it does increase the volume as well, but it's not a sort of greed objective, it's just a kind of abundance objective and a sustainable objective. And also, by doing this, we learn actually a lot more about how the natural world is actually working, how it is synthesizing the elements it needs for fertilizing, and for health. And very much like with health in the human, we understand actually that a healthy crop of any sort is not about getting rid of all the pests and potential threats. It's actually about vitalizing the crop itself, like it is with a healthy human. A healthy aura, strong bioenergy, strong etheric field means that you're not pregnable to these pathogens. You're not existing at a frequency which will attract these pathogens and bacteria and viruses, which are just nature's way of responding to a call from the environment for decay and recycling. So if our body is in a state of kind of decay and low ebb, then it's kind of sending out a signal, okay, I'm ill, I'm maybe ready to die, come and start to decompose me. But it's not the signal we want to be sending. And the same with nature. If a plant is weak, it's sending out a signal to the environment, say, okay, I'm ailing, I need to be recycled and start again from my seed. And so nature sends the bugs and the bacteria to do the job. They're doing their job, they're not evil, they're not wrong. And so that, with the plasma stuff as well, we're aiming at actually just strengthening the plant and changing the energetic environment around the plant so that it grows healthily and it doesn't then attract the pests and the bugs and the blights, which is exactly the same as the biodynamic or the Steiner, which is the Steiner way, and the organic way is the same, isn't it? Where they're just strengthening the plant itself, and then they don't need to kill bugs. And actually the organic protocol is to allow 10%, isn't it? Or to tithe 10% of the crop to the bugs. Also recognizing that bugs and pests have a life, they deserve a life as well. So the more conscious practitioners, and there's some beautiful stories in this book, my Bible at the moment, Secrets of the Soil. Some beautiful stories about Perlandia, I think was the name of the Pelandra. It was a place in northeast America about 20, 30 years ago, run by this amazing lady who really understood the nature and did her planting and growing in commune with it. And she would consciously say, okay, slugs, I recognise you have a right to eat my cabbages, how about you take that cabbage? And the whole blight just went onto that cabbage. And it wasn't like tens of thousands of slugs, it was actually just enough to eat that cabbage. So miraculously the numbers changed as well, because she'd made that connection and allowance for that and tithed 10%. So, and I've heard organic farmers say the same. They just allow 10% of loss in respect for the environment and the balance that's needed. So working with the plasma stuff, it also just brings up all these questions. It's because we're not about killing anything. And with health processing, you'll learn tomorrow, it's not about killing stuff. It's changing the environment so the body doesn't attract it. And we find we reach a threshold in health where suddenly some, say, cancerous cells will just suddenly disappear. They transmute, they change. They no longer have an environment to live in. So it's just physics. That's all it is. Magnetism. And also we find that in the environment, the nature has all this amazing spectrum of fields, obviously, which create all of life. And so we're working with those spectrums to whatever extent we want to. Recognizing that in the humans, the parallel between the neutron is with our soul, the proton is the emotion, the electron is our physical body. So we've got that trinity within the atom, within us, and within the plant. So the field strength of iodine is equating to the soul in man. The field strength of zinc, as we talked about, is our emotion. The field strength of copper is our physicality, and iron is our blood. And in the plant, it's just one step down. The soul is connected to the field strength of zinc in the plant. And the field strength of emotion is sulfur, and of physicality is silicone. Chlorophyll, which is the blood of the plant, this is the most interesting as well, is magnesium. And actually the magnesium atom has got, what was it? The chlorophyll is a magnesium element in the middle with 6 carbons around it, I think it was. And the hemoglobin in the blood is 1 iron in the middle and 6 carbons around it. So exactly the same. All you've done is swap magnesium for iron between the human and the plant, which is beautiful. So if you make magnesium GANs, or GANs with strong magnesium, that's feeding the physicality of the plant, or the blood, the vitality of the plant. But what's most interesting about this is that we connect with plants. Our emotional body connects with the soul of the plant. So we go back one. See, our emotion is zinc, the soul of the plant is zinc. So at the level of zinc, the human is connecting with the soul of the plant. And so seeing it in this light, we could understand how, colloquially, we talk about plants making us happy. And if we're out in nature, we're gardening, we're doing stuff with plants, we feel happy and we get balanced. And it's like our emotion, our activity with plants is actually feeding the soul, and the soul of the plant is feeding us back. So we're directly with the top level of the plant kingdom. So it's very important we engage with nature in a way that is respectful, not in this modern way of agriculture which is dominant and destructive. As Steiner went to great lengths to try to inspire people to understand. So hopefully with this, people can start to understand again in the little way this is starting to come in. So the legacy of the chemical processes, we know half the story, what a terrible damage they do to the environment, whether it's herbicide, pesticide, or fertilizers. And with the fertilizers, it's worst of all because the plants cannot absorb the basic chemical, the raw chemicals. These chemicals have to be broken down, chelated. And science knows this. You need to chelate the chemicals, make them colloidal so that the plants can actually absorb them. But in their raw state, that's really hard, and the earth has to work even harder to transmute those raw elements into something the plants can use. And so the result is you get burnt soils, you get killed microorganisms in the soil, and any organic farmer or biodynamic farmer would tell you the importance of the ecosystem. Absolutely critical to growing good, healthy crops, and sustainably, year after year after year. So we just see this legacy of fields being burnt and decimated and tired out after maybe 5-10 years of monocropping and modern agricultural practices. So this is very exciting in that sense. One could say, well, we've got the biodynamic and the Steiner stuff already, but I can see this is even more helpful in a way, because you look at Steiner's preps, he's got BD 500, 501, 502, and 508 is it? But all of them involve some very arcane methods of manufacture. They're wonderfully mysterious, and they take a lot of patience and commitment and understanding and faith and sensitivity. And what they're doing is really creating the plasmatic fields as well, but using what we would call magic method. They know, using the field strength of the cow horn, the field strength of the manure inside, the field strength of the placenta of the ox, or these things that they're using. It's because of the field strengths, it must be that. And they're creating nanomaterials out of them, and using the cosmic forces as well, and the earth forces where they're incubated in the ground, to generate the plasmatic energies. And then they charge the waters and the humus, and off they go. And they spray these waters on the crops. So it is plasmatic science, really. But it's quite complicated, it's quite specialist. So but what's exciting about this is that, again, by making the GANs of a fertilizer, which has all the natural elements in it, or the GANs of an ash, wood ash, fire ash, or the ash of your weeds, the weeds are already in the ash state, they're already in nanomaterial state. So if you're just adding the CO2 water, the GANs, then you're activating it into plasma, and off you go. You can use that. Because I'm getting ahead of myself, yeah? So that's the difference Yeah, we can see from the quality of the plants, they all have different shapes and sizes and leaf colours and patterns, and the tubers are either in the ground, strongly gravitational, or they're fruits, which are strongly magnetical. You know, every feature of a plant is telling us something about its energetic qualities. So it's a way of reading nature too, to see what they're expressing. So they attract and create from the environment the fields of the elements they need for energy. And they express their own qualities. So once they've, once their seed is carrying their DNA, that's their blueprint, their matrix, and that's programming them with the field strengths that they're going to manifest in their life as well. Therefore, why they are useful to us in certain ways, medically, because they're giving us certain field strength. And that helps rebalance those things in our body. So that's why it's used as herbs and natural medicines, they're so powerful. And so we just need to synthesize those qualities out of the plant into our medicines. And so the potential for growing plants, yeah, we talked about that is to enhance the yields and create better environments so that they can be stronger, and about changing their field strength, stabilizing temperatures. So we'll show you how that works. So look again at the constitution of plants and humans. Again, 96% of the plant is the amino acids made of oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. But the majority here is actually carbon in a plant. So compared to us, it's 26%. But they all add up to atomic mass of 44. So the main ones, the majority ones, CO2, carbon, oxygen, oxygen. CO2 is an atomic mass of 44. The basic amino acid, common to us and plants, has an atomic mass of 43. So that's why the plasmatic field of carbon dioxide, CO2, interacts very well with our own basic makeup. And so the photosynthesis is this, the leaf as a mini reactor. You've got the CO2 in the environment just being attracted by the carbon magnet between the two plates, or between the surface of the leaves. See what they're doing, got a slightly harder, waxier surface on the top and often a slightly duller surface on the bottom, and that's creating a little field strength difference, which is attracting the carbon in. And so this is a little photosynthesis tub, really. So we can treat our compost. I'll talk about weeds. Yes, I think they come up. We treat our compost with the GANS water. We can treat our water with the GANS water. We can treat our plants directly. And all these different domains, in air, in soil, in plant, they all interact with each other and create a new composite environment, which is vitalizing. So the CO2 water for the plant is creating a connection with the plant and feeding its amino acid body. The C GANS, as we talked about before, is providing the plasma fields of the minerals and elements contained in the sea, which are fundamental to all life. And the CH3 is giving them energy, the zinc oxide is making them happy, and the amino acids, again, are creating a little connection. That is something we didn't talk about before, was on top of the GANS tub, you will find a little oily substance during the creation process, and that's the amino acid. So as well as pulling in the carbon from the atmosphere, the reaction is also bringing in the oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen, which are forming little waxy molecules on the surface. And those are an important part of the connection process. It's on the sheets, somewhere, it will be on the sheets. You need to collect those, and ideally add them back. You keep them in a salt water solution, and then just add them back to your final rinsed GANS bottle. And there's no way of testing or proving it. Yeah, just try and add them back in, and they help amplify the connection with the physical body. Okay. I think I took out the slide before about weeds and stuff, but fire, so the elements are so fundamental and beautiful here. So you've got the water, which is what activates the seeds. They found that the seed husk is actually proof against any external magnetic fields, magnetic gravitational fields, until it is activated by something. It's how the seeds actually manage to maintain their energy, strength, and potency for so long, hundreds of years, because something about the field strength of their husk is such that it protects them. And so it has to be broken open. And one way to do that is fire. So the fire will break that matter state husk and allow the fields of the water to come in and activate the GANs, which is basically the kernel of the seed is a kind of GAN state substance. All the proteins in there for life. And the little kernel at the top of the seed is like the little soul. And that's where what's it called? It's the kernel, isn't it? Or the germ. The little germ at the top is like the soul. And all the flesh around, protein around is for it to grow from. That's like the GANs. And the matter state is the shell. So fire will activate that, and water will activate that. And we've all seen how you have to have water to activate most seeds, which is amazing. We take it for granted, but I think it's amazing. And even if you suck the seeds, Anastasia and Reen Cedars talked about this, if you suck the seeds before, then you imprint the seed with your own DNA. And then the seed knows, it gets the message, a bit like the GANs reactors, you give it an intention, it gets the message, this is what I'm growing for now, and it grows for you, and it gives you the fields that you're missing. And that's really cool, isn't it? But they don't teach you that in ag college. It would be a lot to suck a whole field of wheat seeds. But she would advocate bringing farming back to the local level as well. So you're actually dealing with small plots, not massive things.
I've worked with a guy called Tim Ray, naturopath, and he uses auto-sprouting.
Auto-sprouting?
So actually, rather than standard urine therapy, you collect the urine, you put that in the water, and then you feed sprouts with a trace of your own urine, and it does the same. It actually makes up for the field forces that you're missing. That's another way.
And fire also is amazing. That when it breaks down, you put your weeds, you build your fire heap, and you burn it all down into its nanomaterial state, and then this is the ash. That's why people spread ash on their vegetable garden, because it's already in nano state. And then the natural salts in the earth, like the salt in the reactor tub, they pop that nano into its plasma state, and then the plants can feed. It's all there. The fields are released, same as in our stomach. So it's getting back to basics, which is really simple. And so we don't need the fertilizers. And the experiments that are being carried out are here. So one way of doing it is of introducing these plasma fields into the environment, into the garden, is plasma rings. So you get the plastic hoops, fill them with the GANs and tie them around the branch or the trunk. There's one being tied around a trunk. All the branches. And these people, mainly in Australia and Austria, and America, have been doing this a lot. And that just amplifies the flow of natural energies up the tree. Or you can put them on your own hand, which is like a trunk, and your finger is like a paint pen. Lots of parallels. Liquid plasma balls, so you put different plasmas in little ping pong balls. You have different ones, you get a little gradient of energy difference between them, and so the plasma flows. And it's like increases the chi in the environment and gives it a certain pitch, certain frequency, depending on what GANs you're using. This is the famous Australian lettuces, 34 degrees in the shade, which is really quite hot. And their neighbours would wilt, but these guys would not. This is hydroponics. So they put a little bottle of GANs water in the tank, just did one bottle like that in a tank of 20,000 litres, I think it was, and that was enough. And they sustained, they didn't have root rot. I've got that. Taking out a few sides to make it quicker. But it took out the root rot. Oh yeah, hold on. It's there. Can't really see. So plasma system, they had very strong white roots. The other ones they get slightly rotten in the hot water. 34 degree water probably, which isn't brilliant. So the plasma stuff was kept strong. And again, plasma system, big lettuce, normal system, little one. Wilting and not wilted, 30 degrees here, plasma water. With hydroponics, it's a really easy one to test, obviously, because you've got the water element everywhere. And weirdly, their neighbours in Australia didn't want to know. They could see the success and results, and the markets down the road were very happy to be buying healthy lettuces, but the neighbours didn't want to know. It's curious. Because they were neighbouring farmers didn't want to know. Whereas, weirdly, Australia was actually really powerfully inducted into the Steiner biodynamics by, Alex Podolinsky, I think he was called. He went over in the 50s and educated so many there. And they all took it up really fast because they could see it worked, and they were desperate because it's really hard in Australia to make stuff work. So they were open to that. But unfortunately, this challenges the Steiner stuff in that it can be even simpler, and they probably don't let that go, which is what Lisa McDonald said anyway, but she felt the reason. And that's another way, energizing tubes. You can flow your water through the hose, or through the big pipe into the fields for irrigation, and you just wrap tubes of nano-coated plastic or even copper and fill those with plasma water, and so the water charges as it passes through. And if you made your GANs of your fertilizers, you're carrying the whole spectrum of fertilizer energy through that pipe in the water, and that's all you need to do. This is another way, the spinning reactor, got one here. This is made by a guy in China. So in there is two cores. It's got a central brass core and an outer core. So you've got two GANs, one in the middle, one on the outside, which creates a little dynamic. And it just, with 7,000 RPM, it just spins it out and it saturates the environment with it. So these farmers in Australia are using these around their fields, and the fields all connect up, the energy fields connect up, and they are finding good results. Yeah. Which obviously need, before we have the off-grid generator, we still need a power supply for that. Whereas the GANs are self-powered. But they're trying everything, throw it all at it. We've seen those too. Strawberries with GANs. Avec, this is French, and without. Squashes, famous one, regular water with liquid plasma water. Of course, we don't see the pictures of experiments that haven't worked, but lots obviously have. So I'm not saying it happens all the time, every time, as with medicine even. There's no golden bullet, but this is a silver one, I think. Was that a different expression? It's a silver bullet for knocking someone off. But one less than gold, anyway, it's nearly there. Plasma balls on tomatoes and squashes, pumpkins growing more vigorously around where the plasma hoops are. I can't necessarily see that, but just the impression here is we've got gathered data from farmers who are quite excited about it. And they've also lengthened the cropping time of their tomatoes, this guy. You'd have to really study these to see what they're showing, but they're showing stuff. And just his little summary was that the plasma fields, this is after several months of farming in Western Australia, Narrabeen. He noticed a beneficial effect on fruit production. They had results from CO2 zinc and CH3 copper. Plant growth was accelerated and healthy. They appeared to have enhanced immunity to disease. They came to the end of their production cycle later on. It was extended. Spraying the plasma around the air of the plant, which is more the aerial parts of the plant are the emotional body of the plant, the air, the emotional centers. So the CO2 and zinc are more in the air, and the more earthy CuO, CH3 and fertilizer GANs is in the soil. So just thinking about the qualities of those parts of the plant. Fruit production dramatically increased in size, not excessively large though. And this basically, he felt this was most successful, and he'll be eliminating the use of insecticides herewith, and that this will revolutionize future agriculture. This is me at home. That's my mung beans, soaked in GANs water, and they definitely sprouted earlier, and they kept longer as well. Whereas usually you have to change the water every day or so to stop it going a little bit slimy. And this is my runner beans at home. So that's with London water, that was with plasma water. Took off quicker. But if you're doing these experiments, remember to do them a few meters apart, because the one with the plasma in will actually affect the one nearby, because the fields expand a bit. And also other experiments people have done with seeds and germination is that sometimes it seems to start off the same, but the roots are much stronger and healthier in the CO2 water, the plasma water ones. And there are less roots in the controls. And also shelf life. So of interest to farming, of course. So these two cress mustard seedlings, these lasted 142 days in the fridge. And it should have been a week. And this was the control, which lasted just as long. But he realized that's because it was in the same fridge. So it got charged up. This is a kid at school. There's a story last time I had of an Irish vicar, the one who played, he was in the Vicar of Dibley or something, so he was an Irish actor, who's got 7 magravs in his drawing room in Ireland. And he tells a story about one of the local boys went to school, and the science teacher, we should have your B&B guest here. The science teacher said, so boys, there are 3 states of matter. There's physical, liquid and gas, or solid, liquid and gas. And the little boy put his hands up and said, no sir, there are 3 more. There's nano, GANs and plasma. And the teacher, to his credit, said, wow, that's interesting, will you tell me more about it? So he told him more about it. So that was nice and open of him. But yeah, it's good. So the kids are really catching on because they haven't been programmed to think there are only 3 states and that's it. There are actually subtler states. So this was, he put plain water in a jar and he put GAN's water in a different jar and his seeds sprouted much quicker. So it's a bit dark. And he also did preservatives. So he did plain water, just tomato and blackberries and raspberries, and then a GAN's water spray set, and they didn't decay as quickly as the other ones. And finally, the cup of life, which we talked about a bit earlier. This is just another way of doing the feeding. So you can either make nanomaterials, which is actually quite laborious, of the foods, and then get the plasma water and discharge stuff from it, or you can get what's called the cup of life, which is on the website too. So you just have energized water in the middle, well, the water you want to energize in the middle, surrounded by the 3 different ganses, and then you put whatever food or supplement you want to charge the water with the information of on top. In this case it's a banana. And so the field's information of that banana will go into the water, and you drink the water and you've eaten a banana. And they've been doing this in Africa. I haven't tried it yet, there's not enough time, but yeah, that should be tried. Yeah, I just put this in because it's nice. And it's really, in the end, it's what it's all about. People were created to be loved. Things were created to be used. The reason why the world is in chaos is because things are being loved and people are being used. So this is turning it back round. It's to love and appreciate the nature and also our own nature. And our soul and consciousness and co-creativity and connection to abundance, and to reframe that whole paradigm. And that is what we'll be touching more on tomorrow with Michael and Jane and John. And John might give us a little bit of that now too, with an update into whatever comes to mind. So that's the gist of agriculture, and it's all ready to be experimented with. And so I'm going to hand over now. That's the end of my talks. I'm going to hand over now to John, and what we're going to make, it is to do with health, but it's also to do with copper. And you can all make and have one of these, which is a single magrav coil. Rather than making 3 for a magrav, we felt 1 is manageable in an afternoon. It won't be, yes, and we can fire nanocoat them as well, so it'll be nanocoated. And what this is, it's then connected to a USB lead, which goes into a normal phone USB port. And you can hold it, and it's powered up, and it gives you a sort of buzzing, sort of healing field. And it's quite strong. But you can sort of sit with it in the armchair of an evening and hold it for 10-20 minutes and ask it to just start to rebalance. A lot of what our health problems are is that we're just discharged. So it actually just recharges as well. It gives us a bit of vitality back, if there's no other way. And being a bit more conscious device also will give us what we need as well. So that's a nice one to start with. And you can spray it with your GANs as well tomorrow and let the GANs dry. That gives it a little flavour. And so we'll make those. There are 15 of them pre-made in zinc, if anybody doesn't fancy trying to make one. But then there are still 15 that need to be made if everybody wants one. So do we do a straw poll now? Who would like to try to make a single set of coils? There are other things. There's pain pens to make, infinity loops. That is about half. So whoever wants to make, obviously make. And actually whatever's spare, we should have enough. Okay, and then we'll do pain pens, which are these. John will introduce you to those. And infinity loops and capacitors. So I'll hand over.